Here's my week in review for October the 30th, 2011. I want to start off this week by talking about Occupy Oakland again. I mentioned that earlier in the week, but from a political standpoint, I think that's a large concern for a lot of people in America as to how people that are exercising their constitutional rights are treated. And I think that it goes further than the Occupy Oakland, Occupy Wall Street phenomenon there. I think it goes down to every day in how American citizens are viewed by the government of the United States, is from things as simple as traffic stops to warrantless searches, which was in the news this week, that the FBI has powers under the Patriot Act. They have some letters that actually gives them the power, I think, to look at anything that they want to for whatever reason that they want to. That was a real interesting article to read in several different publications. Along with that, and going with the Occupy movement, even the Germans, the publication Spiegel, had an article that I read this week about how America looks to be going into a second Gilded Age, where the hedge fund managers and Wall Street managers are actually replacing the oil barons from nearly a century ago. It's funny how in America we have not learned from history, or if we have learned from it, we keep repeating it, maybe purposefully. But you know, we had of course the famous crash of '29, and we've actually been through several recessions since then, none quite as great as what we're in right now. But personally, I remember back in the 80s when we had the S&L crisis, which was basically, I think, a smaller version of what we had in the last couple of years with the housing bubble. And then today we have, of course, complete polarization in Congress as to what to do about it. On the Republican side, the perception, and you know, perception is, politics is perception. The perception that I have is that the Republicans are going to protect big business at any cost, and they keep referring to people that make a lot of money in the corporations as the job creators. Well, I don't think we can call them that. I know it's a nice buzzword for them to use in their political speeches, but there's not jobs being created, so I don't think we can call them job creators. Let's call them what they are. They're the people with the money that aren't spending it on our economy. Then on the left, we have the assassination of al-awlaki. Probably not pronouncing that right, but my big concern about that is having American citizens assassinated. And but there's something that troubles me about that more. I understand the position that came from the executive branch and President Obama about why it was done, but I think a lot of people are troubled about that, and I've heard a lot about it on the news this past week. A lot of people are troubled by that happening. The thing that bothers me the most is 2 weeks after that, when they were going after another, I guess supposedly al-Qaeda leader, that they got, they killed his 16 or 17-year-old son with another Hellfire missile. And that troubles me greatly, as I think it troubles a lot of people. We very often hear politicians invoking the children. Let's do it, if not for us, let's do it for the children and for our grandchildren. You hear that a lot, especially if you watch a lot of politics on TV, and I do, because it interests me. This is, our country we're talking about. And what I've said for a long time is, no, let's not do it for the children. Let's not do it for the grandchildren. Let's go ahead and do it for us. Let's fix it now. But nobody, humans in general and Americans we're very protective of our children. And for this boy to have been killed in that way is just deeply troubling. On to another subject. Herman Cain, all of a sudden at the top. I guess SimCity is going to fly as far as his plan for taxes. Although I did hear that if that were actually implemented, that the effective tax rate for those of us in the middle class actually would go up a little bit. So we would actually pay more in taxes under Herman Cain's plan. I saw the interview with the newspaper that Rick Perry did with the newspaper. I think it's in Iowa. That was an interesting thing to watch, to get him off of the debate stage where he does not do well at all. I still, once again, to that politics is perception thing, it's still, I can't get away from my thought that he's the big company's candidate. I can't get away from that, because I have, even in that interview, I don't see the depth, I don't see the conviction, I don't see the heart for why he's running to be the president of the United States. I am sure, and let's go back to Ronald Reagan, I am sure he wanted to be president of the United States to try and better our country. And he did a lot of good things. I found out this week, as someone said, that he raised taxes 11 times while he was president. I didn't know that. That was interesting. And, when everybody was on the bandwagon about trickle down, that doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. If you have $1 in your hand, you're not going to turn loose of it for any reason unless you absolutely have to, or someone takes it from you. I mean, that's just human nature. So if you give the dollars to everybody that's already got them, whether they need them or not, they're going to keep them. Haven't heard a lot about some of the other candidates this week, and so we'll see what's coming up. I understand there are 18 Republican presidential debates scheduled, and of course Rick Perry the big news this week was that he was going to take his toys and go home. He wasn't going to do them, but he said in that interview with the newspaper that he probably would consider doing some of them, but he's not very good at it. Ron Paul, a lot of money again this week. I'm glad to see him still hanging in there as a candidate. So, and then I want to cover this about something that's been happening for the last couple of weeks, and that was started with Newt Gingrich and his staff quitting, or parts of his staff, and then Michelle Bachmann last week, or it's been almost 2 weeks ago now, had several of her staffers quit. And I want to make a comment about that from a bigger perspective. The subject comes up around the water cooler. We don't really have one at work, but it's a euphemism. That what I think I brought it up. It started the political discussion. This was a while back, and I called it "Everybody Out of the Pool." And that would be the idea that on one of the big elections where just about all of the seats are in play, that if we just voted out all of the incumbents, sure, some babies are going to have to go out with the bathwater, but just voted everyone out, it certainly would send a message. From a practical standpoint, I don't think it would happen. But let's suppose that it did. What would you have left if we voted out all of the incumbents? Well, you'd still have all of that political staff. And as far as the candidates go, If they're quitting and running for someone else, you know, I understand it. They're not politically convicted to that candidate at all. It's a paycheck to them. I understand. And I think in Washington it's the same thing too. Although I think there are a lot of entrenched, career government people that work for senators, congressmen, for people in the administrative branch that have a large effect on policy that's written. When I thought about this the most was with Obama's healthcare bill. You know, the one that, remember, got voted on Christmas Eve a couple of years ago, and Nancy Pelosi said to the Republicans, you can read the bill after we voted on it. And the thing was over 2,000 pages. Well, I don't think the Democrats, the people that are actually the office holders, wrote all of that legislation. I think a lot of that legislation, and maybe I'm naive to just bring this up, but I'm sure that a lot of that legislation was written in back room by career political staffers. So you would have, if you just voted everyone out, you'd have to get rid of all that staff too. And of course, then you've got, you bring in new people that don't even know where the coffee machine or the bathrooms are. And so it's going to take a while to get that going. But in the political climate that we're in, not such a bad thing, I don't think. So those are my few comments about this week. I hope you have a great week. And if you're watching, I know there are a few of you out there. Thanks for watching. And I hope you'll watch again.